to help out with Jeff and Ben with video or AV equipment, let them know, please.
Good morning. Buenos dias. We are here today to talk about the Rotary trip to Cuba. Let me introduce Robyn Lee, who will talk about it as well, and Rose Camarena, who the three of us were on this trip. It's a wonderful trip. I'd like to ask Robyn to start off talking about the purpose of the trip. Can we get a little Cuban music there, Lightning?
I won't dance now.
Oh, come on.
Well, good morning. Thank you for having us. First, I want to start out. Our Cuba trip was introduced just by our president at our meeting. And I was sitting next to Rose, and we looked at one another and he says, yeah, we want to go to Cuba. So it took us a while to get all the information, but this trip was actually sponsored by Bay Area Cuba Community Alliance, BACA. And there were a lot of things that interest me because there was such an embargo on it. You could not travel to Cuba legally from the United States. And so this was our chance to go. So after I looked at Rose, and said, yeah, let's go. We were the only ones in our club that attended. And of course, Jerry. So we represented the peninsula here, the community. But there were actually 19 of us that attended. And this was sponsored mainly by the people of Marin. So we had people from Sausalito, the Rotarians. It was a Rotarian group from Marin. And we had people from Sausalito, Fairfield, Terra Linda, all in that area. But there were things that we had to prepare for to go. And of course, I had to ask my husband, and he was so excited. He says, oh my goodness, I can buy Cuban cigars. And if you've noticed about the TV program, Cuba Chrome, and how they have the old cars, he was really interested in seeing those. And we saw lots of those cars. So these are the things that we had to know about before leaving. Is that we couldn't use a credit card. There were no credit cards allowed. They didn't accept that. We were out of telephone contact, no mobile phones, no internet. And we were advised to go to our local bank here and to get Canadian money and euros because we would be charged a 10% excise tax if we tried to exchange U.S. to Cuba. And that's what we were using, their monetary systems and their coins and currency. All we had to do as Rotarians is to get to Tampa. All right, so we flew, Rose and I spent in the airport, and we landed in Tampa the next day. And then we were met by a charter group, and it was JetBlue who took us over to Havana. Well, when we went to Havana, it was the same time that the Pope was arriving. So here, the airport wasn't very large, but there were throngs of people there, a lot of luggage, and people were coming from Boston and all over to see the Pope. But they only unloaded one plane at a time. So we had our next long trip and stay in that baggage area. So when I was staying there, my husband actually met somebody from the embassy. And so I was introduced to him, and of course I said, can we go to the embassy? I'd never been to an embassy, and of course it had recently been opened. So we kind of didn't go to one of the places that we were supposed to go to because Jerry, Rose, and a few others, and I kind of went to the embassy one day. But what we did is, on our trip, there were 4 different towns that we traveled to. And we traveled to Havana, and Jerry and Rose will tell you a lot more about that. But basically, BACA was presented to us by Paul Basker, and he was a Rotarian from the Fairfield meeting group, Rotarian group. And the whole essence of this was that, because it was a humanitarian trip, is that we're going to help them fund and bring over equipment to bring water, to build a cistern in their community, which was outside Santiago. Unfortunately, we were never able to go there because Santiago was on the southeast tip of the island, and it was just too far away from Havana. But we were able to visit a farm that actually they wanted to pattern and duplicate a way to get the water into the community, fresh water into the community, and to provide water to grow things for the community, and for healthy reasons to get the water in. So we were able to see a farm that was close to Havana. So we were fortunate to have Paul's daughter there, along with her husband, and that was the connection because Felix was actually from Cuba, and so they were able to travel with us and to explain a lot of the things that were going on in Cuba. So we're very, very fortunate to have them. So what I'd like to do is, when we went to the embassy, it was very interesting, and I have these coins, and I'm going to pass them around. And the first coin that I have is a picture of the old cars, and it's actually a church key. And a coin is used by the military people when they shake your hand, and from this particular squadron, which was U.S. Coast Guard, they'll exchange the different coins that they have. So very few of us, and we feel very fortunate that we have these. So this was the one that was used before the embassy was reopened. And this one that we have, which is fairly new because it was just opened a short time ago, this is a cigar cutter. So I'm going to pass these around, but please give them back to me because they're kind of neat. But anyway, it was very unusual, and we were really happy that we were able to see this. They welcome us, but it was interesting for our visit to the embassy in that the bus driver who drove us there made us walk to the embassy. So they really didn't want to get close to the embassy, and I couldn't figure that one out. But anyway, upon leaving, and after our meeting with the gentleman, it was a highlight of my trip, is that when we were ready to leave, we had to wait within the confines of the embassy before we were picked up, before our taxi driver was there. So there's still a little uneasiness, but we didn't feel, I think Rose will agree, we never felt like, afraid or anything, because people were on the whole very, very kind and friendly to us. There wasn't a lot of things to buy, really, because little trinkets and things like that, but there wasn't a lot of souvenirs that I brought back. We were allowed $100 worth of cigars, each of us, and I think that included 2 bottles of rum. And, well, we did bring back cigars. Anyway, so I'm going to turn this over now to Jerry or Rose.
Let me just walk through some of the slides we have of what you've talked about.
The water purification system was built by Paul Basker, this gentleman, and you can see the unit there, and that's the unit, and it's solar powered. It's a water purification system, and the people in this little community of Nuevo Mundo, the hurricanes came through and did a lot of damage to their community, so they were carrying water miles by hand. So now they have potable water, and it's a tremendous improvement in their ability to cope with life. So it's a scalable project, and the idea is to build from there. We looked at Paul Basker, the man who built it, and brought it down and installed it. That's the unit. On the top left is Felix, his son-in-law, and bottom right is Felix, his son-in-law, who is from there. And so those are some shots of the water purification system in Santiago. Here's Havana. I've got the maps on the slide. Havana's up here. We went to this area of the country, and Santiago's down here. So it's quite a ways. So Rose is going to talk about
a little bit about the Finca Marta, which I think is coming up, and that's the model of what they were trying to do in Santiago was just outside of Havana, and we spent a day there. It was so much fun and so interesting. I think for me that was the best part of the trip, besides the embassy, because at the embassy, the young man that was the fiancé for the Coast Guard in Havana, very, very cordial, very proper man, young. His family was there, and his children were going to Cuban schools, and we talked about Cuba, how the difference was. He's from, where was he from? Virginia. And his name was, I have his card. But anyway, no, this is Fernando. This is the Finca Marta. He named this particular ranch, or this particular farm, after his mother, who happens to be a very famous, well-known...
Rose, can you stand over there? Yeah, thank you.
A very famous, hold on a second, don't go so fast. Go back. Okay. Oh, one more. Okay, so, and you can even go one more, a couple more. There, right there. That's Fernando. He is a very well-educated man. I think he has a environmental science degree, master's, and then he's got another one that I know has to do with agriculture. And he's also has been a guest speaker all over the world, and I think he's going to be speaking in November at Washington, D.C. for the World, I can't think of the organization, but he's going to be one of the guest speakers. And what he basically his concern with Cuba is he decided not to teach in the university. He decided to start this farm. He bought it. His parents thought he was crazy. It was an abandoned ranch. Or farm, and he started with his knowledge of agriculture and environmental. Go back. Stop. Okay. So we're talking about him and how he started the finca. And what I found so amazing is that he is on the cutting edge of what we are probably going to be if there's ever a crash and we end up becoming an agricultural country again. This is the way we want to farm. And his system is they use everything that's that is naturally there. The country has it was a beautiful country. It's all very jungle, very wet. The groundwater is a lot of groundwater, but they also have very deep, clean water. 10 feet, 16 feet down, that's almost pH perfect, 7. Wow. So that's the water they want to bring up, and that's the water they use to irrigate their planting. And what they do is they use circular planting versus long rows like we do here. Long rows takes a lot of land, wastes a lot of water. What they do is they go, so we saw all these mounds like this, and they start up high and they go down like that. With at the top of the mound is the plants that need the most water, and they use a drip system. And then as that water goes down to the next terrace, that's another plant that needs a certain type of water, not as much as the top. If you can go to that.
trying to find the terrace.
Maybe you can further a little quicker.
There, right there. That's what they do. So all these terraces are different plants needing different water. With the top ones having most of the water, and as the water drips down, it goes to the plants at the bottom that don't need as much water. We had a meal there. That day they cooked us a meal. It was one of the best meal I had in Cuba. Everything was freshly made. They cooked it all outside. They have outside kitchens. His method of cooking, he used gas. Gas made from a system that he's created using the manure of the 2 oxen you saw there. They have 4 oxen, and he showed us the hole, el pozo, which is a big hole. They put they clean the oxens are in a really clean environment when where they are put to rest after they work, because they do use them. They use them in the farming and everything else, and then they use their droppings to create the gas, and the gas is used to heat the house and also to cook. So we had a real phenomenal meal cooked with gas from manure from an oxen. So it was delicious. Yeah, and the other thing is, you see us there at the luncheon, when we got there on the bus, it was about an hour and a half out. We got out of the bus, we walked a little ways, we walked into this area that's open, it's all dirt roads. And we were greeted by Fernando and his group, and several of the people that work there are also scientists, also well-educated, also have given their careers up to create these kind of farms so that Cuba can become self-sufficient. He had some of the best vegetables I've ever eaten, some of the best herbs, thank you very much, herbs. The salads were delicious. They had fresh juices made out of papayas that have their coconuts. We got coconuts that they grew. They cut them off the tree, and we had these coconuts with the milk inside, and we had honey. The honey was phenomenal, because also they have a system of beehives all around, and I don't know if you have the picture of the beehive, but they had like boxes like this everywhere with holes in it, and you'd see the bees coming in, going in and flying out, and he opened one up to show us the honeycomb in the beehives, and what they're doing is that's self-pollinating. They're pollinating their plants with these beehives. The beehives do not sting. This is one thing that I heard, that Cuba was considered a paradise. It has bees that don't sting, snakes that don't bite, insects that aren't poisonous. So it's almost a perfect paradise. So they want to keep it that way. So it was just the solar system too. We saw the solar panels where they are pumping the water out. They need the solar system to pump the water out. The gentleman that you see there, the older gentleman, that's the coconut. This gentleman here, Juan Machado, that's a hitchhiker. Here's Juan Machado, and he was the one he's famous in Cuba for finding water. He can find that perfect pH water at 16 feet down to the ground.
Bring them over here.
Yeah, amazing. Little guy about this big, very slender. They're all very slender people, by the way. They're all very attractive. Almost every single person I saw in Cuba is very attractive. They've had so many different countries come into that little island, and I guess they got the best genes from every culture. They're beautiful.
Let me add that one thing that we brought over, well actually another member, is this big tarp, and it costs about $50 for them to transport it. But this tarp was used to dry the seeds after the harvest. And this was a farm that Felix and his family want to create, where they had built their cistern by Santiago.
Correct.
So it was really amazing.
It was really great to see it. Because this is what they're trying to create in Santiago, and maybe in the next 5 years it will be there, but they need to get the water first. So enjoyed this. This was one of the best trips. I mean, it was a challenge. There was not a lot of luxury. We did a lot of traveling. We were on that bus almost every single day. This is one of the regular houses we sat out in the country, and this is what they look like. There are no 7-Elevens, there are no toilets, bathrooms, gas stations that you can stop if you need to go to the restroom. That's the herbs that now they're starting to create a organic kind of business. This is how one way he's funding his finca, is by selling the herbs and the avocados. Avocados this big. Some of the best guacamole I've ever had was there. And they don't use lime or lemon juice, they use navel oranges, the blood oranges for the guacamole. It's so good. But these, they go to the local the local restaurants and sell them to the restaurant owners. Now, you don't see the restaurants out in the street. They're in somebody's house. So you go to somebody's house and they have the one area for the restaurant. They cook for you, they serve you, and then they have the other part of the house where they live. The culture, because it is a socialist country, they're social, and there's a real close grip on the people, that they don't have a method of creating business. There's no entrepreneurship. Well, there is within the people, but the government does not promote it. So it's a poor country, but you could see it. There's Ma and Pa Lee. And we're at the house. He was very proud of his house. It was a rundown house, and he's rebuilt it. This Fernando gentleman has rebuilt it. He has two children and his wife. She is also well educated, and this is what they're devoting their life to, is to create these kind of systems in Cuba. And there's that was on the wall to let you know how they were getting the water, and that was with the cistern. And then there's a couple of others there. That's the well that they built. This is the young man, who went down 16 feet to find the water. That over there is one of the animals that they use to create gas. That's a cistern, and it has a generator. That's what they need electricity for too, the generator. So that's why the solar panels. We delivered some piping to the solar panels. So I took a lot of pictures of the real estate. A lot of it's almost like a movie set where they want to kind of steer the tourists to. You walk around these beautiful squares, they call them, and they're really pretty on the outside, all painted, all reconstructed. I mean, they're in their phase. They were in the revolutionary phase for 40 years. Now they're in their reconstruction, they call it, the reconstruction phase. And they're trying to reconstruct what Havana used to be like. But you walk past this beautiful square, and then you see decaying buildings. There's been no progress, there's been no building, there's been nothing for 45, 50 years. So these beautiful buildings, you can imagine, were at one time just gorgeous, are decaying. There's ocean, salt air is eating up the concrete. And the plumbing is really, that is, I didn't know you had that picture.
No,
That's the embassy, and that's the young man that was with the Coast Guard Leonce for Cuba. And he was so great. Although, I didn't know he took those pictures. Yeah, well, that's another story. We have to talk about maybe another time we'll talk about the embassy, what we learned at the embassy about Cuba. That's the embassy right there. Those are the poles that they put up. You want to say something about this one?
Okay.
Because I know you were really interested in this.
So we see that the U.S. Embassy is a very large office building. And at some point in the 90s, I think, some genius got the idea of putting a scrolling neon sign across the top here. And it was propaganda. It was anti-Castro propaganda. It could be seen all the way across the bay. So the Cubans, in response to that,
Castro in response to that, put up 103 flagpoles across the street from the embassy. So you don't
totally
see it.
obscured the sign. So the flagpoles are still there. There's a history of bad behavior on both sides, by the Cuban government and by the United States government. It's the kind of stuff that you'd be ashamed of your middle schoolers to indulge in place of diplomacy.
That's the square. That's where the tourists were guided to. Our tour guide was really a phenomenon. I really enjoyed him. His name is Sandor. And Sandor is also very educated. He speaks English and Spanish. However, he can't get a job in his particular choice of career, so he's a tour guide. And he makes, I think he said 10 coops. The tour company pays him 10 coops a month. Now 10 coops, Cuban Unitarian peso coop, is what everybody gets, like a monthly stipend that they get, all of them. So if you're a husband and wife and you each, and I don't know how they exactly, how they create the salaries, but if you're husband and wife, you each get the same. So let's say 10 and 10, 10 coops, that's 20. If you got 5 kids, they each get 10, so you're rich. You can buy food and you can buy clothes. And so there's no real motivation to work because you get paid on every month for your food and whatever you can do. There's no, not that there's no motivation, there's really no way of creating a culture of entrepreneurship. That's what I found.
This is our hotel in Havana.
It built in 1897.
This is a sugar plantation. Now, we visited a couple of sugar plantations. They built the towers so that somebody can get up to the top of the tower and take a look and make sure that everybody's working and none of the slaves are escaping. So this is the history of Cuba, of a sugar plantation. And then there's markets nearby. It's another one of the towers. This gentleman, Ed, is 89 years old or so. He did pretty well getting around. His daughter, Ann, who was a physician over at Kaiser. Oh, this was really, I thought
This was a good restaurant too.
I've got a short video clip. This is in the town of Trinidad. They dropped us off the bus and we walked up these very rough cobblestone streets.
And that's our guy, the guy in the red, the gentleman in the red, that's Sandor.
And we're greeted by, we went to lunch at this restaurant, we're greeted by a band outside, and these 2 people on the left are dancers, wonderful dancers. You see a woman with a tray of cocktails, and they come out and serve us, and the maitre d' comes along and pours rum in your That was, they were wonderful dancers. Music is everywhere.
That was beautiful. And we were having those sweet drinks, those honey drinks that were delicious. I can't remember the name of them.
There are state restaurants that are bland, and there are a few private restaurants, such as this one, that really have an air of grandeur. Jeff,
Now this is somebody's house, and she collects all those, everything, there was stuff everywhere, beautiful crystals, candles, plates, just absolutely gorgeous.
Do many locals go in the restaurants, or is it for rich tourists?
We didn't see too many locals in there either.
This is an old pharmacia.
Almost every restaurant.
An ancient pharmacia in Cienfuegos. That's kind of like a pharmacy museum. And this is the Bay of Pigs.
That's the Bay of Pigs.
Rosie, this is the Bay of Pigs. I mean, Robyn,
It was surprising. I didn't know exactly the location of where this was, but it's on the southern part of the island, so it's not really, it doesn't really face Miami. You know, it was just.
Thank you, Rose.
So, Rose, what does that say?
Oh, you know what? If we go back to the last. Okay, this is the Bay of Pigs, and they kind of sort of turn it around the story. So it's, of course, we're the bad guys. I know when he was talking about it, I'm sure the propaganda he's heard as a little kid, you know, you incorporate it into your life. So we were the bad guys. We invaded them. We killed all their people, and it was a horrendous, unfair battle. Okay, so we look at this and we go, wow, you know, the way we look at it, the way I heard it, is so different than the way this younger man has heard it. And we were talking about it, we said, and he said, well, we are changing Cuba though, our generation, his generation, because the grandparents remember this as, you know, they were very revolutionary, they were very, very loyal to Castro. The people my age are not as much, but they're still there, they're still very pro-socialism, pro-Castro, and now the younger generations are going, hey, no, we want, because they do have cell phones. There is a Cuban system, I guess, where they can get their service, they get their cell phones.
Oh.
I have pictures of people in both Cienfuegos and Trinidad and Havana on their cell phones and talking to people. So there is, but it wasn't available to us. So I know that was a problem. So then, if we go back to the only kind of advertising we saw anywhere were patriotic billboards like this. Hasta aquí llegaron. And this was at the Bay of Pigs. So they got to here. They got to here. The mercenaries. So those were the Cubans.
That's as far as they got.
That's as far as they got to that Bay of Pigs. And everywhere we went, that was all we saw. Billboards at Castro and Mandela, and the other guy is Raul. So it was a lot of that.
So this is the Museum of the Revolution at the Bay of Pigs.
That's right.
And it's very patriotic. So,
Great.
There we are.
If you want to learn more, Jerry and Rose and Robin, can you stay a little bit and then people can ask you questions? Any questions right now for them?
Here, I read that in Cuba you have vintage cars that are still running and in good shape, and they really maintain it.
slideshow.
Oh, it's a different portion.
So, yeah, we got a lot of pictures. This was a palace that was built by a Frenchman who wanted to make his wife happy.
Okay, so we're gonna wrap up, and then if people want to stay, they can, talk to them a little bit more. Some people have to leave. So